this whole explanation is a lot easier with images. So good luck, everyone at home.
How do I shift that mindset more towards what is the user actually seeing and what is the impact on them?
I love this question.
That's my cue.
So that sounds promising.
Indeed. So we were focusing on the chain reliability.
Getting the hints, guys. We're getting the we'll get totally on top of that.
Was it too much?
I'm just trying.
Where is this conversation going, guys?
It started so nice.
Thanks everyone for tuning in again. New episode of TechLab, and we have two really cool guests today to talk more about the full journey around SRE. I think a really cool topic. Maybe you could introduce yourself a bit. Starting with you, Bart.
Sure, sounds good. Hi, I'm Bart Enkelaar. I've been with Bol since 2014. Started as a backend developer here, and then around 2018, 2019, started to pick up on the whole SRE thing, and immediately fell in love with it because it fixed a lot of disagreements that I've always thought should not be disagreements. Where we're all trying to get as much value as rapidly to our customers, but then still there was debates going on that seemed counterproductive. And in SRE, I really found the way to realign towards that customer, and that really inspired me. So got on that train, and through various experimentations, ended up with setting up the SRE teams at Bol. And we've been doing that since 4 years now, essentially. And it's been a lot of fun. There's a lot of interesting challenges. And I'm now principal tech lead SRE, which is also good.
Yeah, really cool position to be in as well.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my name is Rob Klein Gunnewiek. Oh, it's a bit difficult to hear my own voice, but
I'm going to put you louder.
Okay, so I've been working at Bol almost 8 years or 8.5 years, I guess. Started off as an external consultant, doing Linux consultancy. And then after a year, I came at Bol, and then I learned about site reliability engineering. And our team was actually called the Space Reliability Team, so that also kind of made me interested, like, okay, what's this about? And then I discovered it's kind of answering all my questions or all the troubles I had before. So because of all the best practices and everything. And since then, I've been doing different projects. And also since 4 years ago, I joined the site reliability engineering team full time. I'm currently in the SRE team for the domains of shopping and advertising. So we are more focused on specific problems in the domain, so really helping these teams with their challenges and see where we can make the most impact.
Sounds like we have a lot of experience at the table. So SRE, site reliability engineering, is a very broad topic. So what area are we going to talk about today?
Yeah, so we've been... There is a lot of different aspects to site reliability engineering, all surrounding reliability and what you need to reliably bring value to customers and also keep delivering the value. I always like to say creating the value of tomorrow while you protect the value of yesterday,
Nice.
So that's both the innovation aspect and the reliability aspect. And a particular challenge that we have here at Bol is that we have a large network of microservices, which are all aligned, and we've always given our teams a lot of autonomy in developing their own systems. And that has worked really well for us, basically because we have awesome colleagues. Mm-hmm. But there is also a lot of risk in that autonomy, in that you're lacking alignment. And we're really feeling the pain right now with that we have localized reliability really strong, but our chain reliability, our end-to-end reliability, that's something we struggle with. And truthfully, the most impactful incidents happen on integration, and for our customers, it doesn't matter whether it's an integration failure or a localized failure. A failure is a failure, and they can't get the items they sorely need. So it's that integration problem, that end-to-end reliability, where we've been focusing on, and that's where we've been developing a cool new tool.
Definitely. So that's my cue.
Yeah.
So
That sounds promising.
yeah. So indeed. So we were focusing on the chain reliability. Before we did some attempt to that, but kind of we forgot to take the engineering teams with it. So kind of we went back to let's do this bottom up and work with the teams on getting their reliability in place. But once they have the indicators, everything is like 100% available all the time because of the problem that Bart just described. So that's not really where we're making impact, right? So and we had some struggles because we are setting up new business models, and that's where we found in shopping and advertising like a real challenge, where we knew that now it's really the time we need to step in on this chain reliability and not continue with the bottom-up approach, because it will take a little bit longer, which is also necessary, but we're not going to make the impact we need soon enough. That's when we started to brainstorm, like, how can we get this chain and reliability in place? And instead of us being the enabling team, which we always are, and this time we said, like, let's take the lead in this, and we'll have to figure a way how to get everyone along this time, but we're not going to be stopped now. So that's how we got to the value chain observer. So I guess one day I just went to Bart and I said, like, I have this idea how we can put these, how we can count these things. How to explain? So we have in the chain of microservices, we need to kind of keep track of what's happening there from beginning to end. Of course, you had Rogier Lombes here so he explained about distributed tracing, how that can help. But we're really looking for aggregated metrics, so counting everything over the entire chain. Maybe still distributed tracing is a solution that we can use, but we went for another option where we are counting at every stage in the chain. We are just counting status outcomes, and if we have a good graph or like a map of and understand how these different stages are connected. So, for instance, if we have a successful thing at stage B, and it goes to, then it should go go to stage D. Then we can count both, and we can compare how if all of these events were transferred, basically.
Yeah.
Maybe Bart, you can summarize it a little bit better than me, because
I think you get the gist of it. It's so you basically describe the value chain as a graph, and then you count the events at each node in the graph, and by comparing the different nodes, you can determine things like latency and completeness and freshness, all based on original ingestion date. But as we discussed, this whole explanation is a lot easier with images. So good luck, everyone at home.
No, when you say it like this, it sounds simple. It sounds logical. You can you make it visible. You can compare. But I have the feeling that implementing this is a bit harder than what you just described.
Yeah, and I was struck by when you mentioned. Yeah, I just one of these days I went to Bart and said, "I want to do this," and I remember that day because you had already implemented the whole thing essentially, and then I was like, "What did you do?" And I remember this look in your eyes when I was critiquing your solution so much that you were saying, "Oh, but then we should just stop." That was a fun conversation, and we went through. Oh no, wait! Conceptually, this is great, but so we turned that into the proof of concept, and we're now going for the more long-term approach, which was
it's bit by character that when I have some idea in my mind, I need to know first if it really will work. So I just want to develop the whole thing. And I know that's not company standard, so I understood Bart's feedback, because I'm not like a hardcore software engineer. I have a system engineering background, so. But it works.
Yeah.
But still, it was a rough conversation, and I'm impressed by how you dealt with it.
Thanks.
That's a good way to influence people. This is already my MVP. What do you think?
It's already finished.
No, and we're having some fun production issues now, of course. Yeah. So we're learning a lot. Conceptually. I think it's a really strong model, as you mentioned, since it deals with aggregated counts. That means that it's fundamentally scalable, and you don't have to throttle it down if you measure it efficiently enough, which is very valuable for getting high confidence metrics. And you have the added bonus that you can actually count across aggregation steps as well. So if you have 50 events that all are grouped together because they are one billable item, then that billable item you can track across all those 50 events. And I think that's a very strong aspect that enriches what distributed tracing gives you throughout ETL pipelines, for example.
Yeah. And it also has to do with the throttling.
Well, if you throttle your distributed tracing, you're getting less confidence in the quality of the things you measure, because you're measuring less, only a small part of the real flow. Well, if you count the entire flow, aggregate the counts, and then work with the counts, then you have higher confidence. I am not allowed to say full confidence, because there is the system that's counting, of course, also has non-100% reliability, because that's impossible.
But of course, we're trying to make the system so simple that there's only a few things that can go wrong, and that we can set specific SLOs on them. So we are applying SRE to our own products as well.
Yeah.
And I've also had that question before, like, so now you have this like secondary system that's measuring stuff, because we are also looking at measuring chains that are measuring clicks and such. Yes, we are, but we do very simple transformations or very simple count things. So it's really, it can be really predictable how it performs and everything. So, but still we do have issues. Issues.
Yeah, exactly. It will be very simple. It's like famous last words, right?
I'm always getting a bit scared when somebody.
It's just simple. Just read this full repository of code. Enjoy.
We had a colleague today who was saying, "Oh, I can just add this simple feature to this merge request. So it won't be a problem." It's like, no. It will not be simple.
Yeah, and I'm also quite curious, because we are, of course, talking about the space, advertisement and shopping. But with the solution, is it like ingrained into the services there, or could you also use it in, let's say, logistics, or maybe different service, or is it maybe that generalized that you could use it on a different company as well?
Yeah,
definitely. Like in logistics, I've set up like a measuring system similar to distributed tracing actually, but that's for the warehouse management system, and that one, for instance, could also be used for tracing these things.
I think I know of at least 5 systems that can be replaced by this system that are currently running at Bol. So I think that would be, if we do this well, that could be really valuable.
Yeah, you have job security for the next 2 years.
I have job security forever.
And the first thing when you mentioned it, like DQS came into my mind.
Right. Yeah.
But that's probably like it's not completely comparable, right? Because it's also some aggregation that's being done there, I think. But it's a different count, probably.
Yeah. So DQS is similar. Actually, it's pretty much the same as what the BigQuery reader is doing, right? Only DQS compares it to measurements. It does basically in database count versus in BigQuery count.
Yep.
That is essentially a subset of what we're doing. Yeah, that's actually exactly a subset of what we're doing.
Yeah.
In the whole graph, what would happen is that the event in the application would be a node, and the event in BigQuery would be a node, and then the application would send its count, and we'd have a BigQuery reader that would aggregate count the aggregate on BigQuery. So that exact comparison we could do as well, and we could place it in a broader context across all the systems in front. So it's it could arguably replace the QS.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, indeed. So you built it, you guys improved it. So it's implemented at least in one system within Bol. Mm-hmm. So what can you already talk about the benefits or what it has given you guys by doing this?
It's not entirely done yet, but we have. I need to go back a little bit to the beginning of the project for this. So we have a particular chain that we wanted to measure. And so we started just mapping all these services and trying to understand the system. And the interesting thing is once you start talking about details, because we need to know specific details, because we're talking about service level indicators, so we need to know exactly what is correct and what's not correct. And so sometimes the answers are pretty vague, and then you start probing more, and you talk to different people, you get different things back. So you're kind of also solving all kinds of alignment issues in the
way.
On the way, yeah. And finally, when we had this map, then we went to talk to stakeholders to talk about, okay, we need to know what reliability expectations the customers have. So, and we're looking for different kind of customers, like Bol itself, of course, but also the advertisers, the shoppers, what everyone's needs are. So the idea is then, from there, from that combination of understanding the system and the reliability expectations, that's when we can see, like, now we need these SLIs, or at least we kind of have high over SLIs in mind and write them out. And then we look at risks to those. If we were to implement them, what is that going to solve? And we kind of found out that some parts of the chain are really reliable. For instance, financial chains are already covered with all kinds of monitoring and such to make sure they're accurate. So we kind of said, like, yeah, let's outscope that for now. Mm-hmm. Can have benefits to do it later, but let's focus on the parts that are more like a black box. And that's what we have implemented for half of it. But we are also having to implement things on the front end side, on the shopping side. Mm-hmm. And we have some more challenges there, because then the number of events that we need to collect are like in the thousands per second, right? So so that's also where that reliability issue that we discovered happened when we enabled that. So there's a little bit of work on that side. But to answer your question, because I wanted to
Good going, Rob. Let's go.
To answer your question, so the next steps are really like, okay, we have these indicators. We need to build confidence in our own tool, right? So we need these SLOs to be covering our own system as well. And then we can set up some kind of cross-team collaborating response team who is going to be there to respond to issues, of course, when we set up the SLIs and SLOs. But also we need to set the SLOs as well, because we currently don't have any idea like what is the target reliability. So we need to talk with product stakeholders to find out, like, do you want it? How much tolerance for failure is there? And then then we can derive initial SLOs and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it sounds really interesting. Just by only applying this, you already learn so much. Actually.
Yeah, and that has always been the case. It's the investigation alone, basically the conversation with business, with your customers, with consumers, is always so valuable. Which is why, we want everyone to do it more, because what we're doing here with VCO is actually quite advanced, but we're also lacking a lot of maturity, even on the lower level. Like I said, teams are doing really well, and that's true, but it's not, for many teams, it's not standardized yet, which means we can't aggregate over it. And also it's not involving product enough yet. So that conversation between teams and their product counterpart is not happening enough yet. And I'd really love to drop in like a call to action here. Because we have a lot of good documentation, and we've made it a lot easier to do it right. So I'd really, and one of the main problems we found, of course, is backlog time. Like, when do you get backlog time? But you don't really need backlog time to do good engineering, because you should always be doing good engineering. And in my opinion, applying good SRE practices is just part of doing good engineering. So especially given how easy we've made it to do good SLOs, good burn rate alerting, I'd really recommend that all teams start this conversation with their product. Like, what's the reliability metrics you really care about, and see if we can measure that using SLOGenie, using the standards. And then we have dashboards that'll pick up your application, your team automatically, and it'll make the whole of Bol slightly better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's really cool. But honestly, because like as engineer, well, we all know sometimes you are a bit lazy, but I'm also having trouble sometimes seeing, because I love the theory behind SRE, just really looking at your user flows, like which are the most important and which are crucial, and how should we really protect these. Yeah. But for me as an engineer, sometimes it's hard to have these upfront, whereas I, for example, look more at how can I be more resilient, or how do I prevent my system not from failing? Yeah. And with like two experts here now, I'm curious, like, how do I shift that mindset more into towards what is the user actually seeing and what is the impact on them?
I love this question. It's because it makes total sense, right? We see we have a problem space that we know very well, and what we instinctively want to do is make our solution as good as possible, as resilient as possible. But that with that innate desire for quality, it's easy to overlook the balance of requirements from the business side. So business doesn't need awesome applications everywhere. I mean, of course, being craftsmen, we want to build awesome applications everywhere, but 80% of the application or of the features we build should be experimented with, should be tested before we make it really awesome and resilient and long term. So by making that decision of how reliable you make an application, by giving product the tools to gauge that, depending on how confident we are about a particular business feature, you also enable them to give you the information you need to make it less resilient when possible. So that enables things like cheaper experimentation, but also cheaper innovation. So it's really about turning that desire for quality into a desire for value.
Yeah.
Do you understand the difference?
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
Oh, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think from a product, I'm also wondering. I'm not part of product management as such, but I always think like there could be very well a expectation from product that things are just working, right? So whenever a developer says, yeah, but there's a small bug, there's some error, then product will not push back, and they will not say like, no, we need this is more valuable, because they have no idea if it's more so they think, oh, something is wrong, that's not good. So and we are also with SRE trying to get the product on board in that sense, that they understand that they should make explicit what level of quality they need. Yep. Because it's not always 100%, but I think we're stuck at product expecting that everything can just be 100% perfect or something. Yeah. And whatever it's not, every incident can have like full attention when it's not always the most best thing to do.
Yeah, fundamentally, we've made reliability the responsibility of the engineers, which robs product of the opportunity of playing with that gauge, of actually making business decisions on that gauge, because it is a cost effectiveness balance, and by taking ownership of that reliability, we're not enabling product to be as cost effective as possible.
Yep.
It sounds like an interesting conversation to have with product, because I think this is kind of a mind shift.
Yeah. Both from engineers and from products.
Yeah, exactly.
It is.
So how does that go generally? Do you need to convince people, or is it like mind blown, or?
I've had all reactions. I've had the fun, mind blown. Oh my God! Yes, we need this so much. And I've had a lot of, oh yeah, no, sounds good.
Very convincing.
I'm sure you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But then it just didn't quite land yet, and well, you can't win them all.
No. It takes time, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, but I really like the mindset shift, because I think for every senior engineer, if you would ask them, okay, point to me the point in code, because of course you're not going to strive for the highest test coverage, because it takes a lot of time, a lot of investment. If you ask them, what is the point in code where you think things might be able to break? I think every engineer can point out a point of code where he gets a bit nervous if other ones are going to peek into. And I think these parts are really cool to have a look, but also always keep in mind, is this actually affecting the user flow as we defined in SRE? Or will this just be increasing the number of code coverage that we're trying to fight here?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's just really fun to see that hassle.
Yeah, and one of the things I've been, from a software engineering perspective, been gravitating to myself is to make this split explicit of experimental code and long-term code. So you have an experimental package, and there you actually stay away from the test coverage. This is something we're experimenting now. And then once you move it from the experimental package to that's when you really start integrating it with the whole of your mental model of the actual long-term application. And that's where you make sure you have coverage that matches with the reliability requirements of the service as a whole. So you really acknowledge that difference in state of features that are to be experimented, which should be rapidly tested, and code that is for that, and features that are here to stay.
Yeah,
interesting. So
maybe one more thing to add about that, we're saying product, we don't give them that gauge, right? But it's also because most of the SLIs and SLOs that were implemented were measured at we are measuring at the service level.
Yes.
So that's exactly the problem, that it's not always understood, what's the effect of that availability or unavailability of that single service. And often, even if there's an incident, there's resilience in place and there's not so much impact. And so often when you see an actual big incident happening, there's usually not, maybe somewhere there's something going off, but it's rarely an actual SLI, and even at service level that's been, because it's not, people didn't set up the SLIs really from the user journey in mind, or it's not measured over the entire user journey. So that's also what we're trying to kind of solve with this whole value chain observer, that we will actually have a complete connection from business level requirements that people can understand in the business to actual indicators in the system. And so we are expecting to see if we're seeing degradation on the SLI level, that we will also be able to confirm that with the business. So especially in this case with shopping and advertising, we also are looking for not just a response team with engineers, but have a process in place where product analysts can be quickly in there, and the support teams who are talking to the actual customers as well, so that we can basically cover the whole thing and respond in the right way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it sounds complex, moving between all those layers, communicating with all those roles you have in the company. But it's super valuable, because that's the only way I think you can really find the problems.
And to be honest, to me, that's always been the most fun part of SRE, that by necessity, you continuously switch between all the abstraction levels, from borehole to all the way down to figuring out a notebook, connection pool to the database, and then back up through the JVM, through the networking layers. You really need to work at all abstraction levels, which was maybe, if you're really a really good software engineer, you do that natively anyway. But for me, compared to my software engineering background, that was new and a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. So suppose there are people listening from other companies who say, okay, SRE, we kind of got SRE, but chain reliability, completely new to us. Would you guys have tips for them how to get started or lesson learned?
Yeah, I think in the broader SRE space for chain reliability, the main thing now is composite SLOs. That's and I think this expands upon that concept, because basically what we're trying to do is to set up tactical decision making on a chain level while you have alerting on a team level.
Yeah.
So which is essentially end-to-end observability with adaptive alerting. But we're doing that through this correlation between low-level SLOs and high-level SLOs. And I think that is something that you will fundamentally need next to composite SLOs. So, yeah, because there is certain architectures where composite SLOs will not work, and measuring end-to-end and correlating low-level SLOs should theoretically always work.
Yeah, and I think in any case, if you have a value chain and you start mapping it like we do, even I think we could have started even without building that end-to-end observability as well, because I think it's just about understanding what its dependencies are. For instance, if you have one system in let's say a data processing pipeline, and it does a REST call to another service, so that REST call, okay, it can fail, but if you then you interview these developers, and what happens if it fails? Okay, it retries it. So what's the effect of that retry? That's going to retry it up to 24 hours. Oh. So now you know, like, okay, so it's not going to get lost or anything, this data, until 24 hours later. So people need to respond, but it will affect the latency and the freshness of the data at the end of the pipeline. So, and if you had already started, like, from a use journey perspective, like mapping, like we did, what is really required in the end to what's visible to the customer, then you kind of understand, like, okay, they need availability SLI, yes, but it doesn't have to be 99.9 whatever, because we have retries, but it should not also fail too often. So those are all kinds of things that you can, even on a surface level, put the right indicators there and also the right SLOs, and have some kind of assurance that the end-to-end reliability is at a certain level.
Yeah, that's a clear example, I would say.
Yeah, so in that case, an availability SLI on one service doesn't have anything to do with an availability of that use journey to a customer, but only. So it's a bit like
it affects the freshness SLI of the journey as a whole.
Yeah.
So you need to think about those kind of things. And
you need to see the bigger picture, basically.
Yeah. And how it affects the freshness SLI is indeed dependent on the technical details. Like, we're only retrying it for 24 hours. So there is some, at some point, it will affect a coverage SLI as well. Yeah. But there's no one-to-one relation. So you really need to look for the correlation and alert based on that.
Yeah.
Because there should always be impact. Otherwise, the service should just be turned off. You know?
Correct. Yeah.
I like that statement.
Yeah. It's really cool though, and I'm honestly really excited for this rollout, because same as you mentioned, 6 places or 6 services or technologies. I can also name a couple, I think, but I'm really curious as well, because I'm just maybe future plans. Might this be something cool to open source?
Well, we have quite a few items that might be cool to open source. This will not be top of the list, especially since we're quite early with development.
Yeah.
I think SLOGenie would be the first thing to open source, but yeah, we have a small team and a lot of awesome stuff to do.
Makes sense. I'm not chasing you. I'm just. I think just the value that you guys are bringing with concepts like these are super cool. Even to just share it on something like a blog, or to share like these are the abstract. What's going on here? Just to share the concepts and such. So that's super nice.
Yeah, definitely. Always happy to share some of the blogs you guys can write. And so maybe because
we're getting the hints, guys. We're getting we'll get totally on top
of that. Was it too much?
I'm just trying.
No, but so as SLOGenie is like an internal thing. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's good to be in 1 or 2 lines describe what it does, as it's one of the most.
SLOGenie, it's an abstraction layer based on the OpenSLO spec over Prometheus recording rules. So you define your SLIs and SLOs on a higher abstraction level, and it generates all the different recording rules you need to do multi-window, multi-burn rate alerting, to do error budget alerting, and the right kind of SLI measurement. So you define it on a high level, and it generates like 200 lines of YAML code for you, which you regrettably need to configure Prometheus, but no longer if you just use the OpenSLO, which already is an open standard. And then
and it also unifies and standardizes the output so that you can compare and filter. So we have some generic dashboards in Grafana that you can quickly see which services have which error budgets, and so it's also very powerful for us later to. Yeah, maybe for the composite SLOs and such.
Definitely, yeah. It's for the Bol colleagues. It's like an Axle for observability.
Yeah. Lots of heavy lifting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Making things easy for people.
As it should.
Yeah, exactly.
That's lovely.
So going back to what you talked about. So you're gathering data, congregating it, displaying it. Does that, because it's kind of observing, right? Does that observing have any impact on the system itself?
Wow, you're thinking quantum mechanics, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, there's costs involved, of course. Right now, all those costs go to Tegel, so that's fine. But he'll start complaining at some point. And we really try to make it as fire and forget for the operating system as possible. But this is also an area we're just really experimenting still, and we just implemented the simplest standard for now. As we mentioned, that will be the simplest for everyone to implement. But it's quite likely that we need to offer something that is more scalable and more cost-effective in the near future. Mm-hmm. But we would love to find it out through learning on production.
Yeah.
I'd like to reiterate my call to arms. Let's up our game and get reliability gauges in the hands of our product people, so that we can be as effective as possible.
Yeah, and I've honestly learned a lot today. So I think it's been a really great really great podcast episode.
But I remember the question you were referring to. That was a great question.
Good, right? Good. Thanks for saving me here.
You need some assurance sometimes.
I'm shaking. It's Friday.
Can you repeat it one more time?
A great question.
Thanks. I hope my manager is watching. No, awesome. Thanks a lot, guys. I think it's a really cool initiative, and I'm really excited to give it a try, to be honest. So
yes,
we'll see.
One convert.
No, you really sold it, because by doing this, you learn a lot about your ecosystem where you operate in, right? So you understand a lot more things.
Yeah, like we mentioned before, just the investigation and the conversations alone already are extremely valuable. Like even if you don't actually implement it, just having had that conversations will make your systems and your teams better.
I think these are great wise words to close this episode with, don't you think?
I agree. Yeah, let's put the resource that you guys mentioned in the show notes. And big thanks to you guys. Thanks for joining us.
Rob and Bart, stay magical.
Always.